Jack Rice for Air America Radio right here in Washington, D.C. And every so often I come across somebody who inspires me, somebody who makes me want to do more, want to be more. I mean this. I think about this in light of a conversation I had with this young woman next to me after I went home and started talking to my family, talking to my daughters about sort of the things they want to do in their lives. And that is a big part of why I wanted to sit down with her again. Ariane Kirtley, the executive director of Amman Imman, Water is Life. Ariane, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I'm so pleased to be here.
You have an extraordinary life to me because there are many people who spend their lives trying to find ways to make as much money as they possibly can. And success seems to be, if I have the new car, if I have the new house, if I have this, if I have that, that is somehow success. And yet I look at what it is that you do and I realize it's something completely different. Before we even get down that path as to why, explain what it is that this organization is.
Amman Imman, Water is Life, is an organization that I founded in 2005, beginning of 2006, to build sustainable and permanent water sources in the Azawad Valley of Niger. And we work in an area where 500,000 people have no water. They're literally dying of thirst, and climate change is making their lack of water more and more important. And water is too deep for them to reach themselves underground. So we're bringing water to the surface to build oases of life for these people.
Why? I mean, why is it that you have decided that this is the place that you want to do this?
Well, I grew up in West Africa with my parents who were photojournalists for National Geographic. And as I grew up, I always wanted to go back and do something useful for the wonderful and amazing people that had helped raise me, but that had nothing. And so and Niger was a country that I was particularly fond of. And so I went back to work for Care International, and then I returned as a Fulbright scholar to conduct public health research. I have an MPH, a Master's in Public Health from Yale University. And so I returned to conduct research across Niger. And this region that I currently work in, I got there completely by chance. Basically, my research assistant had abandoned the region when he was a child, and he begged me to go. And even though I'd grown up in Niger, I'd never heard of this region, really. The few things I'd heard of it was that it was dangerous, it was full of bandits, the most unpleasant place to be in Niger. And already Niger is considered the poorest and probably one of the hardest places to be anyway.
We should make that clear. If we think about what Niger is, it's one of the poorest countries on the face of the planet. The difficulties are extraordinary. It's isolated in many ways from some sort of trading points. There is no particular trading point as compared to some major areas. So people don't even know where this is frequently. So you take Niger, and now we take a corner of Niger, and you pick this corner. I mean, you could go any place, you could do anything. And I have to come back to this question. Why here?
Why here? Okay, well, I was long-winded answer to that question. Working with CARE, working with other organizations, I thought I'd seen the hardest and poorest regions of Niger, at the time considered the poorest country in the world. And then I came to this region called the Azawad, and every single person I met begged me, said, Ariane, please help bring water to our region. And I was astonished. First of all, I was astonished by the amazing dignity and beauty and compassion and generosity of the people there. The first night I arrived in a camp, because a lot of these people are nomadic. I arrived in a camp, and the next morning I found they had slaughtered a goat for me. A person had walked 20 kilometers to get a goat and have meat for me in the morning. They didn't know that I was a vegetarian, but I ate that meat. And these are people that, they have maybe one glass of mud water to drink in a day. And if you're their guest, they will give you that water without hesitating a second. So that was the first thing that really marked me, was their amazing generosity, which you will find to be the case across Niger and across West Africa. But then the amazing need of people dying of thirst and nobody doing anything to help them. And my first response was, I'm not here to help you. That's not my job, but I'm conducting public health research, and what I'll do is I'll be your messenger. I'll take your plight and take it to other organizations and take it to the government. And when I left and tried to take this message, nobody was interested to hear that 500,000 people were dying of thirst. And I had grown to know these people as my friends and family. I'd spent months living with them by that point. And I decided that, well, with my husband, he said, well, Ariane, why don't you be the first? And my father in America, I was in Niger still at this time, and my father talked about this to a fabulous woman named Janet Cornelius, who just gave $20,000 right off the bat without even, at that point I hadn't decided to build permanent water sources. And so these were the things that motivated me, along with the news that one of my best friends that I had made from the region passed away in childbirth. Because not only do these people not have water, they don't have access to food or schools or even health. You know, to get to the nearest health center, they have to ride a donkey for 2 days. And then when they get to the health center, usually the person is just a government volunteer who can hand out aspirin. You know,
now, Ariane, you realize that there is a huge shift between essentially being a scientist, looking at this from an analytical point of view, to all of a sudden becoming an activist. I mean,
right.
And that really was this gulf that you had to reach. Was there a point when you looked back now and realized, well, this is where I was supposed to be. This is why I started. This is what I did. This is who I am.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I always went into public health to be an actor, not to be a researcher. But of course, I mean, I believe in a God. I believe in a higher power that brought me here, and other people who don't believe in a higher power can just believe that it was kind of my destiny. But obviously, I mean, of course, when I got there and I left, I knew this is what I needed to do. And some people say, well, okay, well, there are even nicer places in Niger to work. Why did you choose the worst possible place? And I say, well, because that's where I'm needed. And that's where nobody else is willing to go. And my friends are dying. And I couldn't live with myself and not do anything for these people. I can't imagine that anybody that would go to this region could just leave and say, okay, well, too bad for them. They don't have water. Oh, well, their children are dying of thirst. Sorry.
Ariane, this is so daunting, though. You come back from an isolated country. It's not isolated to those people. This is where they live. It's the center of the world, like everybody. Right. But obviously, to people who've never been there, who don't understand it, may not even know exactly where the country is. For them, this is shockingly isolated. This is so amazingly daunting, though. You come back to the United States, and you say, I'm going to make a difference. I am going to do something. You're one person. How do you not get overwhelmed by that?
Oh, I get overwhelmed by that every single day. You know, you take on this daunting task, then you feel responsible for the lives of 500,000 people. And, well, you know, sometimes I have now a 21-month-old baby that I take to this region with me, and I risk his own life to do this. I risk, you know, my family, my husband, and for me,
you risk yourself. Now, let's not doubt this. This is not the nicest place, if you will, the safest place. You risk your life too. Do you feel that you have more responsibilities now? I mean, we'll come back to this too, but you have a 21-month-old child, and you go here, your child may lose their mother. I mean, this could happen.
Right. Well, it's true. I've been very, very, usually, you know, the biggest risk. I want to go back to the fact that I said there were bandits there. That was the rumor. There's not a single bandit in this region. So the risk is really the health factors and just the harshness of the circumstances there. I couldn't possibly imagine myself doing anything else at this point and feel okay about that. And not only does my son risk losing his mother, he also risks losing his father, because my husband is now the Niger program director and actually does probably the hardest work of any of us in the organization. I guess we don't ask ourselves these questions, because if you ask yourself too many questions, like, well, okay, I could be making $100,000 this year rather than, the little that I make doing this. Or you can ask yourself so many questions. You just do it because you know it's right. Somewhere in your heart, you know it's right.